Hello, my name's Jeff Detmold, and today I would like to show you how to achieve a better HDR, more seamless with Photoshop CS6. So here I've got some bracketed photos of a lake with a mountain that I did, and what we're going to do with that is we are going to open them in Photoshop and we're going to merge to HDR Pro. Now, Photoshop's going to go through and open each photo and then copy the contents of that photo into one project. As you can see, it's stacking the layers here. And then it's going to give us a dialog so we can merge all these layers into one HDR image. So it's aligning the layers based on content. So I took this handheld, so there's probably a little bit of shift from image to image, so it's going to align them so that we don't have any ghosting in the image. And it brought that up on the wrong screen here. So here is our merge to HDR dialog, so we can see all the bracketed photos below here. Now, I don't like the 16-bit. I find I get much better, more natural results doing it with the 32-bit. So you see you lose all the options here, but I'll show you how we can change our exposure after. You can play with this here. This is just for preview purposes. Where you leave it makes no difference, but you can kind of get an idea as to the range that we have in a 32-bit file. So we'll click OK. And it's merging it to HDR. So now we see our image here. Now the way I like to edit this, I like to do my HDRs the same way I do a non-HDR image. So I like to start with bringing it into Camera Raw and then bring it into Photoshop for finishing touches. So what I like to do is go Save As. And we're going to save it as a TIFF file. We want it to be 32-bit. So now that we have it saved, we don't need to save changes here. So now we've got our TIFF file. So we're going to open that in Camera Raw. And now we can see how much data we actually have in this picture. Just click Auto to get us a bit of a starting point here. So we're going to raise our shadows a little bit. Probably going to up our whole exposure just a little bit here. Our highlights will drop a little bit just so we get a nice sky. Our shadows up just a little bit more. We're going to add a little bit of clarity here. We're very cold. We'll warm up the image just a little bit. And I really like this log, so I'm going to try to bring out a little more. So the nice thing about doing an HDR this way is we know there's data there. And instead of doing your further edits in Photoshop, by bringing them into Camera Raw, which can handle the entire image, so we get to use all of the data, we can get a lot more out of the picture. So I'm going to raise the shadows a little more on this log. So we can just paint in here. We'll raise the reflection of it there a little bit too. And you can see there's actually a little bird there. So we'll click preview so we can see the difference. So it raised a little bit. We'll maybe pump it just a little bit more here. And raise the exposure just a touch there. We don't want to see around the edge of the log. We don't want to see where it connects. So we're not going to do too much there. Don't want to see where our selection was. But that's looking pretty good. So our mountains are still looking very, very cold. So I'm going to warm the whole image up just a little bit more here. And if we go into 100%, you can see the detail in them. So on our original picture, had this been just one exposure, we wouldn't have been able to see much detail in the trees there. We can see our little bird here. Lots of detail. It's a 32-bit image, so it has tons of data there. So now at this point, you could open the image and bring it back into Photoshop and do any other touch-up work that Camera Raw isn't capable of. But I find this gives you the ability to make much more natural-looking HDR versus one that is very, very grungy and blotchy that has that HDR look to it. This will allow a much more natural-looking HDR. So I hope that helps. If you do have any questions about it, please go ahead and ask, and hopefully I'll put up a few more videos in the near future.